So the next part of the system we're going to look at is the actual timesheet report. So we can see all of the lovely little bubbles here that tell us this information, but if we want to really drill into that information from this view, we have to click on all of the individual bubbles to see the information that they relate to. So there's a better way that we can see that, and that's going into the tracking system and loading up the timesheets report. Once we're in tracking, we come into reports, and then we click on timesheets. By default, the timesheet report will default to the last full week, Monday to Friday. Typically when you're dealing with payroll, you would normally be looking at a Monday to Sunday week, so that's what it gives you by the default. But you can change those dates very easily with the date selectors. When you're in this view here, you can see that now this is giving us a summary view of all of our staff and the hours that they've completed for each day. And then out the far side, we get a total hours that they've worked for that day, and we can compare that to their contracted hours to see what capacity they were utilised. So someone that hasn't worked all of their contracted hours will be less than 100%. Someone that has worked more than will show more than 100%. When we click on a staff member, this gives us a drilled down view per staff member of all of the entries that compile into that total for one day. So you can see here that this is actually a really nice summary, a detailed summary of the leave entries or the timesheet entries that make up that person's timesheet. This is really good for just checking through and making sure someone hasn't accidentally selected the wrong type, for example, that they've been away on annual leave and perhaps they've loaded that as work hours instead of leave, or someone's selected the wrong option for a break, or something along those lines. So everything that appears on a timesheet entry will appear in this report view. So you can see this one's had a note put by the staff member that we can see in here. The notes function is really helpful if you've got staff that have different pay types, maybe special pay types, if you've got overtime allowances after a certain amount of time, or things like call outs where you need to know if a staff member's shift related to a call out instead of regular work. As long as they've put a note on their timesheet entry, you'll see it all from this view, which is really helpful when you come to actually process their pay. This is also quite a nice clean view as well, because you can only click on one staff member at a time. So it's really nice and helpful when you're going through multiple staff. If you've got a lot of staff, it keeps the screen nice and clean for you, and you can really just focus on one person at a time. Once you're happy with all of the information that's sitting in here, you can also export that report, and that will export all of this information into an Excel document for you, which you can take and then use elsewhere, whether that's your payroll system or just keeping a copy for your timesheet compliance or your pay compliance. You want to keep a record outside for a direct, so nice and straightforward. Just click on the Excel report and that will open up. The last thing that this report will show you is where work time has overlapped. If we have an overlap in the shifts, we will get an extra little message, a pop down here underneath the day that will show how many hours of that actually overlaps. There's nothing here because these hours all match up, but if someone, for example, had loaded in 8 o'clock until 2 o'clock and then a second shift of 12 p.m. until 5 p.m, that will show that there is a 2-hour overlap in the times that have been recorded, so that you can fix that up before you actually pay them and make sure that you pay them the correct hours.